Hey, this is Annika, and I wanted to say a few words about delusions. Um, this is a term that is getting tossed around a lot these days, and it's often used as basically a slur, or maybe not a slur, but a judgment. It's like you're delusional, or that's a delusion, and it's meant to insult. And I actually I have a really different orientation towards the term delusion because I've been delusional. And I think I'm still delusional, and so I think is everyone else. I think that none of us are perfectly aligned with reality, and whenever we are misaligned with reality, we are actually in a delusion. And I don't think that that's necessarily a bad thing. I do think that we can cause harm from the place of delusion because we're not aware of how we're impacting reality because we're not aligned with it. And so we're acting from a place of control and thinking that we know what's best and how to do what's best within a perspective on reality that actually isn't real. But I do think that delusions serve a really, really important purpose. They protect us from seeing things and feeling things that we're not resourced to see and feel. So when I'm in a delusion, uh, the stories I'm making up or the narratives that I have in that delusion are there to protect me from pain. Um, and I think obviously the objective is to heal that pain, right? I think we can agree on that being a good idea. But the way we go about delusions is that we try to get people out of it, as if they need to be rescued from it, or as if being in the delusion itself is somehow harmful or toxic or problematic or whatever word you want to use for it. Whereas I see the delusion sort of like a drug or like a medication, or like a form of addiction. It's a numbing. It serves a numbing purpose, and it holds pain at bay. That is not something that I am resourced to actually deal with in that moment. And so I'm holding on to a delusion. So if I'm going to come out of a delusion and face reality, I'm going to need support. I'm going to need resources to deal with the pain that stands between me in the delusion and me in reality. And so that layer of pain is what I'm trying to avoid by holding on to the delusion. And so for somebody to just throw reality at me and, argue with me and rationalize with me and try to show me how I'm delusional is actually really not helpful because they're trying to push me into that layer of pain, and I may not be ready to do that. And I may feel really unsupported, and I can feel really threatened when I'm being pushed into that pain, right? I'm protecting myself with this delusion for a reason because it feels like it's too much. And I'm not a fan of the way we're going about this, like that we tell ourselves that we're helping one another when we're arguing and trying to convince somebody of the truth. I'm not a fan of that process. I've done it my whole life. I've been the recipient of it and the perpetrator, so to speak, of it. I've absolutely believed that I was doing a good thing, trying to get people out of their delusions. I've also been on the wrong side of it, where I thought that I was in reality and the other person in delusion, and later on it turned out, whoops, other way around. I changed my mind. I've become more real, and I realized that they were actually speaking from the place of reality, and I was not. So, I guess the bottom line of what I'm saying is I just have a huge desire to be met where I'm at, even if I am in a delusion. And I'm also very desiring of doing that to others and meeting them where they're at, even if I am convinced that they are in a delusion. That's not the same as validating the delusion. So I'm not I'm not advocating for telling me that my delusion is real, or me telling somebody else that their delusion is real. I can believe that they're in a delusion. They can believe that I'm in a delusion. I'm okay with that. In both directions. I just don't want to try to be forced out of it, and I don't want to force anybody else out of it. It's really hard because it has an impact, and when I'm confronted with someone else's perspective, um, actually in either direction, uh, it can be really, really painful. If I have just come out of a delusion and I've not re-entered, but I've aligned myself with reality, and then somebody's trying to convince me of their delusion, like one that I've just left behind, and I'm not really grounded yet in this growth that has happened, that can be really, really painful. And I can lose myself and go back into the delusion. I don't want to do that. So that feels really awful when someone is doing that. Um, but I would say the other way around, when I'm still in the delusion and somebody else is trying to get me into reality, but they're not offering the emotional support, or I just don't feel emotionally resourced, and they're putting a lot of pressure on me to see the truth, even if, theirs is really the more true than what I'm believing. If I'm not ready to go there, that can also be really stressful and really painful. I'm all for people telling me what their experience of reality is and how they see it, and I'm totally open to others telling me that they think that they're aligned with reality and I'm in delusion. I just don't want to be pressured to change my views to theirs, and I don't want to do that to others as well. And so that's the culture I want. That's the community I want to create. Not validating where the other person is at, but just recognizing that delusions exist for a reason, that they serve a sacred purpose, and that forcing someone out of it or pressuring someone out of it is not going to end well. It's not going to serve us in the long run. When they're ready, the story will shift. When I'm ready, the story will shift. So yeah, that's oh, there's so much more I can say about this, but just want to drop that here on the topic of delusions and why I don't consider that an insult. I just consider it a part of the human process of being in this incarnation and being real. I'm delusional sometimes, you're delusional sometimes, we're all delusional sometimes. That does matter, it does have impacts, but I would love for us to not to try and force others out of their delusions.